Presbyopia. If you're under 40, you probably don't know what that is yet. Consider this your warning. Despite the presby syllable, suggestive of presbyters and Presbyterianism, this condition affects more than just ministers. Most people experience it in their early to mid-40s. I first noticed it during lockdown. In the dimly lit cathedral in Glasgow, I struggled to see the tiny preview screen on the camera. I was supposed to check for little blue focus dots, but they were invisible to me. The result? Multiple out-of-focus recordings of the Mass, which I had to redo again and again. The problem stemmed from my contact lenses. I wore them to avoid glare from the studio lights, but with them in, I couldn't focus on anything up close. No amount of squinting or adjusting the distance helped. It turned out I had developed presbyopia, an age-related change in the eye's ability to focus on near objects. I hadn't noticed this process happening. It crept up on me, but the dim lighting of the cathedral made it unmistakable. In low light, our pupils dilate to let in more light, but this actually reduces our depth of focus, making it harder to see details, and because the lenses of my eyes were now less flexible due to presbyopia, they wouldn't play ball anymore. I started noticing it elsewhere, reading the daily prayer books in the chapel, struggling with the book of the altar on darker days. Yet, when I went for an eye test, everything seemed fine. Because in the bright lighting of the optician's office, my vision improved. Good light increases contrast and shrinks the pupil, improving one's ability to see details. With presbyopia, my ability to see depends entirely on light. In dimly lit situations, I have no hope of seeing small things. The word presbyopia comes from two Greek roots, opes meaning eye or sight, and presbys meaning old or elder. It literally means old eye. The older we get, the harder it becomes to see the way we used to. In today's gospel, we meet Simeon and Anna, figures of great age and experience. But by all accounts, they should have been the least likely to see something new, especially if God appeared in the form of something tiny inside a dark church, like a baby. And yet, they saw what others could not. What made the difference? Light. Simeon speaks of a light for revelation, a divine illumination that enables true vision. His old eyes, degraded by age and the long years spent in the temple, were able to perceive a miracle. God's light changed his way of seeing. This strikes me as something worth noticing. With age, it becomes more difficult to see. We develop our own prejudices, ruts, and blind spots. We may begin to mistake familiarity for wisdom, losing the ability to imagine and see what we don't yet. Yet there are new things to see, new revelations of God's presence, happening all around us. Perhaps the stranger in our midst, the one whose presence makes us uncomfortable, is a bearer of God's grace. Perhaps the person whose struggle we've overlooked, because their suffering is not like ours, is where Christ is present. Perhaps the places we have written off as barren or broken, the circumstances that seem beyond redemption, perhaps God is already at work, waiting to be seen. We just need better light. For some of us, our older, less flexible eyes don't adjust and adapt like they used to. More illumination is required, that of a heavenly variety. On this feast of light, may the light of Christ, the enormous and expansive love of God, sharpen our perception, help our focus, and reveal what might otherwise remain obscure. For presbyopia, old eye syndrome, is real. I know it firsthand. And I also know what makes the difference.